Hey there, everybody. We have an event going on in the office, so our host is taking just an extra second to log in because she's been running around. We'll be ready to go in just a minute.
Hello. Sorry, I'm late.
Hey. I think we did have one. It looks like we have one pre-submitted question. But I don't see the asker in here. And it was just about changing the styling of the matrix view of a report.
A matrix rule?
It says, is there any way to change styling of matrix view of the report?
Oh, of the report. Okay, bear with me. I need to get an instance running.
Take your time. I'm just not here yet.
I am so sorry, guys.
No, thank you.
All right. So, do we have that question posted? Somewhere, entering the style of matrix view of the report. Okay. So I am not sure what the answer to this question is, but let's see. I'm gonna create a report. Okay. So from here, it does not look like that's an option that's available to us. But see, we have a few more options. One thing I see us doing is potentially creating, like showing the intersection data, expanding what the report looks like, shrinking it, but I don't see anything else. I am not an expert by any means. So I could try to get an answer for you and follow up with you at a later time. Caitlin, do you have the email address of the person that posted that question?
I do. Let me send it to you real quick.
Okay, thank you. All right. Do you have any other questions here? All right, so unless there's a question, I am going to just quickly show you how to create a matrix rule. It's a rule that I've come to know and love because I am able to use it for a bunch of stuff and to evaluate a bunch of different different outputs in different scenarios. So I'm going to create a matrix rule that we can play around with. All right, so this is what a matrix rule looks like. It doesn't quite look like any of our other rules. It doesn't look like a truth table per se, but it is, in a table form. Now over here, you can add as many columns and rows as you need to add. The really cool thing about this is that the setup is essentially the same, but when we go to create the columns, you notice that they don't look anything like what you're used to when you create a truth table, for example. So I'm just going to put in some things here that we can evaluate. I'm going to put age. I'm going to put name as a string, and I'm going to put, what else can I put in here? Say date of birth as date time. Ooh. Okay, there we go. All right. So now that we have the input set up, we're going to try creating a couple of rows and columns for this rule here. So this plus sign right here is what's going to help us add in our rule. Now this, like I said, is unlike the truth table in the sense that you actually have to use some of our built-in ways of evaluating our inputs or variables, if you will. So over here, I want to say if the person's age is maybe less than or greater than 21. Sorry, if it's no greater than or equal to 21. So we're going to go here. Under this, we have, okay, so we can use greater than. Let's do that. So you can call this whatever you want, but I'm going to call it something that's going to help me identify what that rule is trying to do. So we have age greater than 1 created over here. And you notice that it gives us true and false. Those are, because that rule is going to give us just true and false. That's the output of the rule. So the number to check, yeah?
I can't see your screen.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was like, oh, wait.
It just stopped sharing. Yep. Okay. How about now?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. All right. My apologies. I will start that again, since I don't know if anyone saw. So what I did here was I set up some inputs to the rule. I set up the age as an integer. I set up the name as a string, and I set up date of birth as date time. Here, let's search that again. Pick that, and I'll hit save. So that takes us into our matrix rule. What I was saying was that this looks a little bit different from our truth table, because in the truth table, you can just click on select data element and pick the input that you want to evaluate, and you'll be given the option to pick the verb for the correct data type. Here, we don't have that. But to actually input a condition, you can click this plus button right here, I want to evaluate a number. So that gives me the kind of the evaluation methods that are available to me. So I'm going to pick number greater than, and I will call this age greater than. You should name this something that is representative of what you're trying to do so that you don't confuse yourself. Now, the number I want to check is the age that I'm giving to my matrix rule. And I want to be able to test it against maybe the number 20. So if the person is older than 21, then maybe I want to do something. And if they're under 21, I want to do something else. So we have that set up. And then we have the true or false paths that are coming up. Now on the true path, you could do one thing or the other. And on the false path, you could do something else. So I can say on my true path, I want to evaluate the name. So I can say, all right. So I can say name equals because I want to use the string equals function, right? So that gives me that gives me another dimension to this rule. So now I can say I want to check the name, and I want to see if the name is equal to this constant value right here. So let's say John. I'm keeping this very, very easy. So it's going to check if whatever name that we're providing to this matrix rule is John. If it's true, it's going to do that something. If it's false, it's going to do something else. So you notice that you can nest this rule as deeply as you want to go, or leave it as simple as you want to leave it. On this false path, I will be adding something else. So if the age is greater than 21 and the name equals John, do something. If the age is not greater than 21, then I want to do something completely different. So, all right, so this is going to be another name check. Right. You notice it throws that one in there because Decisions doesn't want to confuse this column with that column, which is fine. So again, we want to evaluate the name. And this time it's not going to be John, it's going to be William. Now let's pick Sandel, since that's my name. And we're going to hit close. So now we have two separate paths that this rule can take, whether the age is greater than 21 or not. It can take one of these two paths. And if the name is John, it can do something else, right? So over here, I want to check on maybe the date of birth, right? So I can just say something along the lines of date is before today. So that's what I'm going to call this. And the date value I want to give it is this date of birth that I define right here. So obviously, unless you were born today, this is never really going to evaluate to this is never going to evaluate to false. It's always going to be true because you were born before today. Now in here for the outputs, so we could just spit out true or false or whatever. But over here we have the output type. Right now it's listed as Boolean, but you can return a string, you can return a decimal, Boolean, an integer value, whatever you want. So if I set this to string, it's going to allow us to actually output any number of strings that we want. And they can say whatever we want them to say, right? So I set that to a constant value so that I can just say a bunch of random things to be spat out. And because I've run out of strings to input, so bear with me. And finally, all right, so this matrix rule is built out. This is really like bare bones matrix rule. But again, you can make this as complicated and as simple as you want it to be. So I'm going to hit debug right here. So for my age, I'm going to put in 27. For the date of birth, let's not choose today. Let's choose something that's before today. And for the name, I'm going to select John. So let's see how this rule evaluates right here. So we can see all the fields that are in orange. So those are the things that evaluated true. If it's left as white or gray or blue in some situations, then it didn't go down that path. So I provided age 27. So 27 is greater than 21. So it went down the true path for that one. Now down the true path, it checked if the name was equal to John because that's what I gave it. So that also went down the true path. And then it also evaluated the date of birth that I gave it. And because it was before today, that also evaluated true. So the output that this rule is going to give me is high. Now, if I had created this, for example, to say something else, right? Let's see, let's debug this another way, right? So let's say my age is going to be 18 now. Pick a date of birth before today. And my name is going to be Jim. Start debugging this. So now my age, because it's 18, is not greater than 21. My name does not equal William, so it went down the false path as well. But my date of birth is still before today. So the intersection of all those three rules that were checked is this right here, summer. So this is what is going to be output for me. So if I were to put this in a flow, the output from this rule would be summer. So now that I've created this rule, why don't we put it in the workflow and call it from the workflow and see how that looks? All right. So running a matrix rule is not one of my favorite steps. You can add it to your favorites if it's something that you like and you want to use more frequently. But if you search run matrix rule, that should come up. And then you can go in and pick the rule or create a new rule. But since we've already created one, I'm just going to pick the one that we've created. Connect that. And then now we have to actually configure that. So I can select ignore over here and require the user to provide these inputs at runtime, or I can just provide the inputs as constant values here that will be applied each and every time. But I like to do this dynamically. So I'm going to debug this flow. What did you do? I didn't provide anything. What are the inputs you took? It seems to be holding on to the last run that we did, which is weird. So I'm going to try to overwrite them here. I'm going to overwrite those values. All right, so the name would be Larry. Let's make Larry 22. And Larry's date of birth, let's make that yesterday. All right, now we're going to run this again. We have age 22, got Larry, and we got that date of birth. And my result is Speedy. So we can actually look in here at the matrix rule. Larry's age is greater than 21 because I put in 22. Larry's name is not John, so it went down the false path. Larry was born before today, so the output from that workflow is speedy. Are there any questions on what I've done here? Awesome. Like as you can see, matrix rules are pretty powerful. They can be used to evaluate a huge number of overlapping criteria, and that's what I like about it. You know, some of the, in my experience, some of the matrix rules that I've built have been 3, 4, sometimes 5 rules, all built into that one table. So it saves time, it saves a lot of effort, and your flows just look cleaner. So if you've never used matrix rules before, my recommendation would be to explore that and just see what that gets you. All right, thank you so much for attending today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Sandel. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sandel.
No problem.
How's it going?